Good afternoon. Welcome to KCL Tech Tip Tuesday. I'm Kevin Coachman. Today we're going to talk about layer tools such as layer mapping and layer control. Thank you for joining us live or on our YouTube channel. We're going to start with how to get the software or update to the latest version by going to kclcad.com, then access KCL. Choose the download under KCL BIM CAD Designer. If you're new to KCL, there's some quick start instructions on what to do. If you already have the software, when you run the installer and choose modify, we'll detect what versions of Revit you have and install all the necessary KCL applications. We recommend using current user. Just as easier for updates, it allows you to install often without administrator access. Location will be up to you. So once you get the software installed, you open it up and it looks something like this. We're going to get right into what we need to talk about with layer mapping, and there's a button at the top of the screen called layer mapping. Layer mapping allows you to change from the standard layer names and colors to whatever you would like. So by default here, 200 is yellow. I can look at 201 and keep reading down. I'm going to tell you there's a lot of layers that may look daunting, but the majority of them, once we get to this 230, are rendering layers. So if we kind of skip past the 230s, twos, and there's a lot of them, you'll see some other layers here. Elevation layers, some manufacturer specific layers. We have layers for the utilities, for electrical, plumbing, ventilation, and even some equipment note layers as well. So you can change any or all of these. You can have unlimited layer maps. So I'm just going to open up a couple of layer maps to show you when I switch on my drop down. It goes out to the cloud and downloads them. So instead of 200, when someone's working with a program called iQuote, they like it to be called IQ_200_2D and change the color to red. If you note, they merged two layers into one. So if it has 200 or 200 2D only, it goes to the same layer. So you can merge multiple layers together or just make a quick change of a layer. We had another example of, it's called layer 0. So if you're an AutoCAD user, you can guess what it's going to do, but they then mapped the common layers to layer 0. Kept the colors as whatever layer 0 has. So you have options to do layer name or color or both. I'm going to go back here. We did a small rendering ad for FCSI a long time ago, and the only thing we used was changing one layer color. It'll open up. I'll show you what it looks like. So I scroll through my list. It changed 232 render to yellow. So it can be very simple where it is colors. It can be simple for layer names. You can merge, which is a little more complex or fancier, and layers and colors. The X lets you remove from your list. The edit lets me edit the name if I want to make any changes to the name. And the plus is how I can add a new one. So you can have unlimited layer maps. They will show on the bottom right corner of KCL. We'll look at that in a minute. You have the ability to export or import. If you're creating custom layer maps, you may want to export your file and store it, because this is one of those things that anyone in the company can change. So it's not a permission basis, but if I have this set and someone else in my company opens it up and says, you know what, I'd rather it be color 4, and they save it, that's what that layer map FCSI ad will now use, that color. So It is something that you may want to consider exporting any saved layer maps for storage. Otherwise, we're storing it in the cloud for you. It is backed up, but it's not locked for preventing changes. Once you have your layer maps, you can simply select it from the bottom here. I changed to iQuote. You can see the color of this plan view change to red. If I go to layer 0, it's all set to red. So this is very quick and reactive. If I open up KCL, I can see I have different layer names in here because that's the map I'm using. So when I send this to AutoCAD, it comes in the way it shows in KCL. This is what the layer mapping is for, to allow you to set KCL to your standard or your client standard. If someone needs 24 equipment instead of 200, that's what they're going to get for my equipment layer. And that automatically happens for any piece of equipment that I load in. So it's not going to revert back to the other layers until I change it. So it's really permanent until you make the change. Now, here's just a little thing I want everyone to realize. If I turn off layer mapping and I hit the same insert, it's the same color and layers. That is not a KCL issue. That is an AutoCAD issue. You cannot have two blocks in the same drawing with different layers. I would have to take this block. Of course, it comes up in a different window. I'm going to find my name of it, FDCRR. Okay, so let's rename block. And if I call it some other name, now I can insert and I got my version. So just be prepared if you're playing with layer mapping and it doesn't work, start a new empty drawing because you can't have two versions of the same, you can't have two different versions of the same block name in one drawing. All you need to do is just start a new drawing to test that out. So layer mapping, names or colors. Layer map is saved in your company private cloud. You work at home, you work on the road, it's there. You can change it at any time in between loading blocks, and you can have as many as you need. One tip that's kind of an AutoCAD related tip is that we've had some users want to go use layer map to set everything to black or white. You can do that. It's a lot of work. The goal for most people is to print a monochrome output. When you go to the AutoCAD command to print or plot, go to the plot style table, monochrome, and that will override whatever coloring you have. And here we'll just do a quick preview. Got to select a printer. And now everything is black and white. So instead of using layer mapping to set up hundreds of layers to color black or color white, use AutoCAD to help you out. So that's a little tip there. Let me open up a sample drawing. So we're going to move on from layer mapping to layer control. Layer control is something that KCL built many, many, many years ago, 15, maybe 20 years ago. AutoCAD came out with a command called layer states that for the most part we thought would do away with this. But anytime we make a change and we do something in layer control, we hear from users who like it. So layer control is a floating window, put my drawing up, and I can move it around. You can see it here, that I can quickly turn on and off layers. If I said, show me my electrical layers, it turned off the layers I don't need and turned on my electrical layers. Plumbing, same thing. Equipment, just 2D layers. I got it. Don't know where it went, so we're going to pop it back up. We'll do it with balloons this time. So KCL layer control gives you presets that match the standard KCL layer names. You can add or remove to our layer controls. This is what's behind the scenes. This works with full AutoCAD or AutoCAD LT. So if I use different layer names, I'll have to adjust this. But if I want to add more groups, this is basically a way for you to create simple macros or script actions in KCL. But it's intended for layers to simply just be able to control them here. If you have elevation layers, it turns off my plan layers. Here's my elevation layers. So I don't have to go in and manually turn things on and off. All layers on just brings me right back to, hey, show everything. So layer control is part of your private cloud. If you want to edit the buttons, out of the box, it's going to give you what we consider standard layer configurations. So hopefully layer control and layer mapping give you some additional flexibility over what KCL can do. We're going to do two more quick functions while we're talking about layers. If I go to balloon settings, about, layer and symbol legend, there is a document that you can access that explains what the base layers are. Here it shows 232 for 3D. It doesn't go into all of the layers of all the different render layers, but it gives you the core layering that we use. If you see 350 elevation, then it's in the elevation view. But you can see here, print that out if you need it for reference. That's available under balloon settings, about tab. One last thing I do want to show is that if you, and this is a not often used case, but if, let me set this up here, we'll go with the iQuote one. If you have layer mapping and you're working with an item that doesn't have a Revit family, and you want to send this AutoCAD block to Revit, when I hit R for Revit, it should use the mapping that I have set up even in Revit. So even though it's AutoCAD layer mapping, if in the small use case you are working with KCL and you said, hey, I need to send AutoCAD blocks to Revit, we should be using those colors. And I say should because I did not look at this, but there it is, IQ 200 2D. So we will use the layers that you need even when you send something to Revit. I know this is a different case here of CAD to Revit. Yes, we can do it. We have other webinars about that, but layer mapping applies to anything CAD related. Napkin sketch, it uses those layers. So you can make sure that your salespeople, if they're using KCL, set up layer mapping for them. Once they turn it on, when they use napkin sketch, again, we have other webinars on napkin sketch. I'm just going to do a quick save this as an AutoCAD drawing. When I open up that file in AutoCAD, I will see these layers because of the mapping. And I'm just looking for my CAD drawing here that I saved. So they send it back to you. It's now using the layers that you want them to work with, like this IQ 200. So layer mapping is very powerful. It applies to napkin sketch, it applies to Revit, it applies to AutoCAD. You can get a list of the layers through balloon settings. And as I like to finish our Tech Tip Tuesday webinars of how do you contact us, if you have any questions, hit the contact us button at the top, pick a subject, type in your own, send us a note. We can do Zoom webinars, GoToWebinars for you and your team if you have additional or detailed questions. If you like webinars like this or watching our YouTube channel, the upper right corner has a YouTube button. And you'll see here the last several webinars we did. If I click the video button, I can go a little bit deeper. And we try to rotate about every 3 months. That way you get what's new and available. So thank you very much for joining us. If you do want to, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you'll get the latest updates from us on videos. Thank you very much for joining us today or watching on YouTube.